My mother stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, voice dripping with pride she had never once aimed in my direction. "Your sister just bought a beautiful home," she announced to 16 family members. Then she turned to me with that smile. "You know the one. The kind that looks warm until you realize it's aimed down. So, Maggie, when exactly are you going to get your life together?" My sister Denise leaned back, brand new earrings catching the candlelight, and let out this little laugh. "The kind that says I already won and everyone knows it." 16 forks stopped moving. I set mine down slowly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I said, "I already did. I paid cash. I just didn't invite anyone who doesn't believe in me." My mother's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Denise looked like someone had flipped the lights on in a room she thought she controlled. And that was only the first 5 seconds of the longest Christmas dinner the Holt family has ever had. But I need to take you back. 3 months before that dinner. Back to a phone call on a cold October night that changed everything. Back to the lie that finally broke the spell. It was a Thursday night in October and I was sitting cross-legged on my couch in a one-bedroom apartment just outside Cedarville, Connecticut. I was finishing up a prototype for a client dashboard. My coffee had gone cold about an hour ago. The radiator was doing that clicking thing it always does when fall hits, like the pipes are trying to talk to you. My phone buzzed on the side table. Mom glowed on the screen. "No hello. No how are you doing?" Just that long exhale she's perfected over the years, the one that tells you a number is coming before she even opens her mouth. "The furnace has been acting up again, Maggie. East side of the house. The HVAC guy said 4,800 to replace the unit before winter hits. I can't swing that on my pension. $4,800. I looked up at my own ceiling where a water stain had been slowly spreading for almost 2 months because I hadn't even gotten around to calling my landlord about it. 4,800 was more than 2 months of my rent. "I'll send it tomorrow," I said. "You're a good girl, Maggie." Click. 4 words. That was the most warmth I'd gotten from my mother since maybe March. And even that call in March had ended with her asking me to cover Denise's car insurance because Denise had rear-ended somebody in a grocery store parking lot and her premiums went through the roof. I set the phone down and opened a spreadsheet I keep on my laptop. Tucked in a folder labeled Family. I started it 3 years ago, the first time my mother called with an emergency that somehow always required my checking account. Back then I figured it'd be a short list. It wasn't. 3 years. 19 transfers. $34,600. Furnace repairs, plumbing, car insurance for Denise, a water heater, security deposits. Every single time, the call came the same way. The exhale. The number. The click. Not once did anyone say more than 4 words of thanks. I sent the 4,800 and went to bed telling myself what I always told myself. This is the last time. 2 weeks later I was eating leftover soup at my kitchen counter and made the mistake of opening Instagram. Denise's face filled my screen. She was standing in front of a house I had never seen. Navy blue door, white shutters, one of those braided welcome mats that costs more than what I'd had for dinner. The caption said, "New beginnings, thanks to the best mom ever." 53 likes. My mother commented red hearts. Uncle Vernon left a clapping emoji. Aunt Brenda wrote, "So proud of you, sweetie." I scrolled through every comment. My name was not in any of them. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even in the background of the photo. Thanks to the best mom ever. I read it 3 times. Something nagged at me. Quiet. Like a splinter under the skin you can't quite see but you feel every time you press down. That same evening my mother forwarded the photo to the family group chat. So proud of my girl. Then Aunt Helen, my father's sister, the one who ran the little bookshop 2 towns over in Millhaven, typed one line. Lovely. How's Maggie doing? Nobody answered her. The conversation moved on to Thanksgiving planning like Helen hadn't said a word. Her question just sat there like a stone dropped into a well. Falling and never hitting bottom. I need to take you back further to explain how I ended up here. Back to when I was 13 years old. My father died on a Tuesday morning in April. Heart attack. He was 46. One second he was pouring orange juice in the kitchen and the next he was on the floor. The ambulance got there in 8 minutes. It wasn't fast enough. After the funeral my mother just stopped. The mail stacked up. The electric bill turned pink and then red. Dinner became whatever was in the freezer and then nothing at all. Denise was 16. She grieved locked in her room with music loud enough to feel through the walls. She missed 2.5 weeks of school and nobody questioned it because Denise was the sensitive one. I was 13. And I was the one who called the insurance company. I sat at the kitchen table with a cordless phone and a pile of envelopes I didn't understand, teaching myself words like past due, and beneficiary, and grace period. I made boxed mac and cheese every night for 3 months. I wrote checks copying my father's handwriting because I didn't even have my own signature yet. 13 years old, keeping the lights on in a house full of adults. My mother recovered eventually. Slowly. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Once you become the person who handles things, that role never resets. It just becomes who you are. The emergency became the routine. I was the one who fixed. Denise was the one who was fixed. My father used to say something to me. Usually when we'd be sitting out on the back porch after dinner, watching the lightning bugs come out over the yard. You're like me, Maggie. You'll figure it out. I used to think that was a compliment. I carried it around like a gold coin in my pocket for years. Now I understand what it really was. It was an apology. An apology in advance for everything that was about to land on my shoulders. When Denise got engaged to Craig about 3 years ago, my mother called me before she called anyone else. Not to share the good news. To talk about the budget. Your sister deserves a beautiful day, Maggie. I can cover about $9,000 but the rest, I need you to help with the difference. The wedding cost $14,000. $5,000 was the exact amount I'd saved for an advanced UX certification course that would have bumped my salary into a new bracket. I transferred the money on a Friday. By Saturday I'd talked myself into believing it was the right thing to do. The bridesmaid list came 2 weeks later. 4 names. All Denise's friends from high school and her gym. I wasn't on it. My mother's explanation came quick. She wants her friends beside her, Maggie. You're not really the dress-up type anyway. On Denise's wedding day I stood in the 3rd row wearing a clearance dress from Marshall's. The photographer ran out of time before reaching my side, so I ended up behind a borrowed camera taking candid shots for the reception slideshow. $5,000. A certification I never took. And a memory card full of someone else's perfect afternoon. Denise's thank you post tagged our mother, all 4 bridesmaids, Craig, the florist, and the cake lady. She did not tag me. $5,000 and I didn't even get an @ sign. I didn't say anything. That was always my mistake. Every single time, I didn't say anything. I swallowed it. I folded it up and put it in that quiet place inside me where all the things I should have said went to collect dust. And the spreadsheet got 1 more row. And the column on the right side, the one labeled, what they did for me, stayed blank. White and empty like fresh snow on a field where nothing grows. You know what's funny? People always say family is everything. But nobody ever finishes that sentence. Family is everything. Your savings. Your self-respect. Your time. Your silence. They'll take everything if you let them. And the worst part isn't the taking. It's that they'll find a way to make you feel selfish for finally saying enough. Thanksgiving at my mother's house smelled the way it always did. Roasted turkey, cinnamon candles, and something slightly burnt that nobody would acknowledge. When I walked through the front door, 14 chairs were full and some guy I didn't recognize was sitting in what used to be my seat. Oh, my mother said. That's Tyler, cousin Jamie's new boyfriend. I figured you wouldn't mind sitting at the side table. You're easy like that. The side table was a metal folding card table shoved into the hallway between the coat rack and the bathroom door. No tablecloth. Paper plate. Plastic fork. From where I sat I could hear my mother toast Denise and Craig through the open doorway. Glasses clinked. Nobody looked toward the hallway. I ate Thanksgiving dinner 12 feet from my family and I might as well have been in another zip code. When the dishes piled up, I washed them. Mine and theirs. My homemade apple crumble sat untouched. My mother had ordered a pie from some bakery in town with a little gold sticker on the box. Driving home I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes before turning the key. I wasn't crying. I was just so tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. That night I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. The $4,800 I transferred on October 3rd stared back at me. I typed Denise's address into Zillow. Sale date, October 30th. But the listing history told a different story. Under contract, October 5th. 2 days. My mother got $4,800 on a Thursday and by Saturday my sister's name was on a purchase agreement. I called the HVAC contractor. Hi, this is Maggie Holt, Gloria's daughter. I wanted to check on the furnace work you did at her place in October. Ma'am, I haven't been out to that address since April. Your mom canceled. Said she'd handle it another way. Another way. The furnace was never broken. My $4,800 didn't go to ductwork and heating coils. It went to a down payment on a house with a navy blue door and a welcome mat I'd never been invited to step on. And Denise knew. You don't accidentally receive $4,800 and forget to ask where it came from. You just choose not to. But the furnace wasn't the only thing that cracked open that week. Back in September, a month before the furnace money, I'd stopped by my mother's house to drop off spare keys. The front door was cracked open. I stepped inside and heard her on FaceTime in the back room. I froze in the hallway. Because I heard my name. Honestly, I don't know what Maggie's even doing with her life. She sits on that computer all day. At least you have a real home. A real husband. Sometimes I worry she's going to end up alone and I'll have to take care of her. Denise's laugh came through the speaker. Light and easy. The kind of laugh that isn't cruel on purpose. It's cruel because it doesn't even notice. Mom, she's fine. She's just Maggie. She's just Maggie. 2 words that reduced 13 years of sacrifice into a shrug. Like I was a lamp in the corner of a room nobody turns on but nobody throws away. I set the keys on the table by the door. Carefully. The way you set a glass on the edge of a counter because if you're not careful something's going to shatter. Then I drove 25 minutes home without the radio. Just the road and that sentence on a loop. Have you ever been summed up in a way that erased everything you've ever done? 2 words. That's all it took. That night after Thanksgiving I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the spreadsheet open. 19 transfers. $34,600. And beside every entry, the column labeled, what they did for me, glowing white and empty. I tried to remember the last time my mother called just to ask how I was. Full stop. Nothing attached. I couldn't find one. I tried to remember my last 3 birthdays. 28, nobody called. 27, my mother texted HBD at 11 p.m. 26. Denise asked me to drive her to a prenatal checkup that morning. She never mentioned it was my birthday. I didn't remind her. I closed the spreadsheet. Not in anger. In clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop arguing with evidence. Here's the math nobody in my family knew. I earned $98,000 a year. 625 apartment. A 2017 Civic with 143,000 miles. No vacations. No new clothes unless something wore through. 5 years of saving like a woman preparing for a disaster. Turns out the disaster was my own family. $146,000 in a savings account nobody knew existed. I closed the laptop at 4 a.m. And for the first time in 3 years, "This is the last time" wasn't a lie. It was a promise. Aunt Helen's bookshop sat on a quiet street in Millhaven. Hand-painted sign, bell on the door, shelves crammed with paperbacks and the smell of old pages and chamomile. She'd run it alone for 19 years since Uncle Martin passed. Never complained. Never asked anyone for money. Never performed her pain for an audience. I hadn't planned on telling her anything. But Helen could make silence feel like an open door. She poured tea into a chipped blue mug, sat across the table between stacks of books, and looked at my face. The way she always did. "You look like your father," she said. "Same look he had the week before he told me he was going to marry your mother. The look that means you've already made up your mind." I told her everything. The 4800. The contractor. The Zillow timeline. The spreadsheet. The $34,600 that vanished into a family that told everyone they managed on their own. The FaceTime call. "She's just Maggie." Helen set her teacup down and folded her hands. "Honey, I've been watching this for 13 years. Your mother loves Denise the way she loves looking in a mirror. And you? You remind her of your father. She never forgave him for dying and she's been making you pay for it ever since. What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to stop paying for a family that doesn't see me. And I'm going to buy my own house." Helen nodded once. "Good. And when it's time to sign, you call me." I drove home and something was different. For 13 years I'd been carrying a weight I thought was love. Turns out love isn't supposed to leave bruises on your bank account and silence where your name should be. Something inside me shifted. Not like a door slamming. More like a lock clicking open so quietly you almost miss it. But once it's open, you can't close it again. Now before I get into what happened next, I want to stop here for a second. Because what was happening in this family wasn't just drama. It wasn't just a difficult mother or a spoiled sister. This was a pattern. And it has a name that most therapists will recognize in about 5 seconds flat. It's called the golden child and scapegoat dynamic. In families where one parent holds all the emotional power, they pick one child to be the star. That child gets the praise, the protection, the excuses. That was Denise. Then there's the other child. The one who gets the responsibilities and the invisibility. They're not hated. They're used. Their job is to keep the machine running so the golden child can keep shining. That was Maggie. And the cruel part is, the scapegoat is usually the most competent person in the family. But because they're reliable, they become invisible. You don't thank the electricity. You just expect it when you flip the switch. The other piece of this is something called weaponized guilt. And if you grew up in a family like this, you already know exactly what I'm talking about even if you've never heard the term. It's when someone uses your love for them as a leash. Gloria didn't yell at Maggie. She didn't have to. She'd just say, "Your father wouldn't have wanted this," or "I raised you alone after he died," and Maggie would fall right back in line. Every single time. Because when someone ties your guilt to a dead parent's memory, it doesn't just sting. It paralyzes you. You can't argue with a ghost. And Gloria knew that. She'd been pulling that lever for 13 years and it worked every single time until it didn't. Now real quick. If you're new here, this is what we do on this channel. I collect real stories from people on Reddit, Quora, and other forums. With their permission, I change names and details and add a bit of fiction to protect their privacy. And then I break it down psychologically so we can all learn something and maybe even recognize these patterns in our own lives before it's too late. If that sounds like something you want more of, hit that subscribe button right now. It's free and it takes 1 second. Alright, let's get back into it because this is where everything changes. The first call came on a Wednesday evening in early December. I was making pasta and my mother's name lit up the screen. The exhale arrived right on schedule. Maggie, the heating bill came in. $5.20. Brutal winter. I leaned against the counter. Mom, I can't cover that. The energy company has a payment assistance program for seniors. I'll text you the number. 4 seconds of silence. If you've ever said no to someone who has never once heard it from you, 4 seconds feels like 40. Excuse me? Her voice didn't rise. It dropped. Gloria Holt didn't yell. She chilled. I raised you alone, Maggie. After your father died, I held everything together. I just asked you to care. Click. Dead air and pasta water boiling over. 20 minutes later, the family group chat lit up. My mother, pray for me. It's going to be a cold Christmas. Uncle Vernon, hang in there, Gloria. Aunt Brenda, you're the strongest woman I know. Denise, Mom, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Beautiful words. $0 attached. She didn't offer to pay the bill. She just dropped a heart emoji and let the implication float that someone else would handle it. But not this time. I found the house on a Saturday in mid-December. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a small fenced yard with a dogwood tree that bloomed white in spring. Pale gray siding. The kitchen still had laminate counters from the 90s. But the bones were solid, the inspection was clean, and the roof had been replaced 2 years ago. $163,000. I could pay it outright. I called Helen. I found it. When do we sign? The closing was December 19th. I sat at a long table in a title company office with fluorescent lights and a plastic plant that had never been alive. Helen sat beside me, reading glasses on, looking like she was there to audit the whole operation. I signed 34 pages. When it was done, the notary said, "Congratulations, it's yours." Helen took off her glasses. Your father would have cried right now. The good kind. I drove to the house alone. Put the key in the lock. Turned it. Empty living room. Bare floors. White walls. Cold air. No furniture, no group chat pinging. Just silence. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, the silence didn't mean I'd been forgotten. It meant the space was mine. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell a soul besides Helen. Christmas was 6 days away. And for the first time in my adult life, I was walking into my mother's house with something I'd never had before at a family dinner. A truth I didn't need to hide. December 24th. 5:55 p.m. I parked in front of my mother's house. String lights on the porch. Wreath on the door. I sat in my car for 2 minutes, looked at the photo of my father and me I keep in the glove box, took a breath, and got out. Warmth hit first, then ham and cinnamon and something faintly burnt nobody would acknowledge. On the hallway wall, 8 framed photos. 5 of Denise. 2 group shots. 1 of my father alone. None of me. My mother appeared in her holiday apron. Oh, you came. Good. Napkins need folding. Hall closet. Not Merry Christmas. A task. I walked past the closet into the living room where Helen sat with eggnog, watching me over the rim. 1 nod. I sat down. 16 people around the table. My mother stood, raised her glass, and delivered the toast I already knew was coming. Denise and Craig bought their first home this year. That's what family is about. Building something. Denise did the humble hand-on-chest thing. Uncle Vernon raised his glass. The cousins murmured approval. Nobody looked my direction. Then between the main course and dessert, my mother leaned toward me with that practiced tilt of concern. So Maggie. Your sister has a home. A husband. A plan. When are you going to settle down? Denise leaned back and smiled. Seriously, Maggie. You're 29. What are you even saving for? I set my fork down. Metal on porcelain. A small clean sound. Actually, Denise. What exactly did you save for? Because I know it wasn't the down payment. The smile vanished. My mother's knuckles went white around her glass. Maggie, don't start. Mom, you asked me for $4,800 for a furnace that wasn't broken. The contractor hasn't been to your house since April. You cancelled. This is exactly what you always. I paid $4,800 that went toward your down payment. And you knew. Craig's head lifted slowly. His eyes landed on Denise and didn't move. She wasn't smug anymore. She was scared. She tried to recover. Turned to the table, voice bright and cracking. Whatever Maggie thinks, Craig and I are doing great. Everything's on track. She reached for Craig's hand. Right, babe? He didn't take it. Then Ruth Pritchard, my mother's neighbor, 2 eggnogs deep and pink-cheeked, spoke with the cheerful carelessness of a woman who had no idea what she was about to do. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, Denise. I was honestly a little worried after that second missed payment notice came through at the bank. But if you say you're on track, wonderful. Dead silence. Craig pulled his hand back slowly. Second missed payment? Quiet voice. The kind that's louder than yelling. Ruth, that's private. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. She hadn't meant to. But the truth finds the one crack in the wall and pours through. And Ruth had just kicked the wall down. Craig folded his napkin. Placed it beside his plate. Pushed his chair back. Walked to the front porch. Through the glass I watched him standing in falling snow, phone to his ear, not yelling, not pacing. That was worse. My mother's voice shook. This is what you wanted, isn't it, Maggie? To humiliate your family on Christmas? No, Mom. I just stopped pretending. Your father would be ashamed of you. A chair scraped. Helen stood. 63 years old, navy cardigan, soil still under one fingernail from the bookshop garden. Not tall. Not loud. But when Helen stood, people listened. Gloria. My brother would have been ashamed of how you've treated the one daughter who is most like him. I know Maggie paid $34,000 to this family in 3 years. I've seen the records. And she just bought her own home with cash. I was standing beside her when she signed. Every face turned to me. My mother let out a sharp half-laugh. A house? You? With what money? You don't even have a real. She stopped one word too late. Everyone heard the shape of that sentence. I stood up slowly. You asked when I was going to settle down. I already did. Paid cash. $163,000. No mortgage. No debt. No one else's money. I just didn't invite anyone who doesn't believe in me. 16 people frozen. A fork slid off a plate. Hit porcelain with a bright clean clink that echoed like a bell. I put on my coat. Looked at Helen. She was already standing, purse under her arm like she'd been ready since before she sat down. Merry Christmas, everyone. We walked out into falling snow. Craig was on the porch. Our eyes met once. Not hostile. Not warm. Just 2 people who'd learned tonight that the ground under them wasn't solid. My phone buzzed in the car. Helen. You did good. Drive safe. I pulled away. In the rearview, my mother's house shrank. String lights. Wreath. The glow of a dining room where 16 people sat in the ruins of a story that had just been rewritten. The week between Christmas and New Year's is supposed to be quiet. Mine wasn't. Craig texted December 26th. Checked the credit report last night. Didn't know about any of it. Thank you for being honest. Between people who deal in facts, a thumbs up is usually enough. From what I pieced together through Helen and Aunt Brenda, Craig discovered $26,000 in credit card debt Denise had been carrying alone. The second missed mortgage payment was real. Craig didn't file for divorce, but he insisted on a financial counselor, took over the joint account, and Denise sold the leased SUV. A dented white Ford replaced a shiny black Chevy in their driveway. Uncle Vernon called my mother 2 days later. "Gloria, how much of what Maggie said is true?" She tried her usual deflection. Vernon cut her off. "We're not fools, Gloria." The strong single mother character she'd played for 13 years closed its run on December 24th. My mother called in mid-January. "I've been thinking since Christmas. I want you to know I'm sorry you felt hurt. I'm sorry you felt hurt. Not I'm sorry I hurt you. The apology that isn't one." Then, anyway, the heating bill came in. $6.20. And with the cold snap I was wondering. The ask tucked behind the apology like a bill slipped under a sympathy card. "Mom. I love you. But I can't be that person anymore. You've changed, Maggie." "No, Mom. I just stopped disappearing." April came the way it always comes to small towns in Connecticut. Slowly, then all at once. One morning I walked out onto my porch with coffee and saw it. The dogwood tree had bloomed. White blossoms opening along branches that had looked dead all winter. The house still wasn't finished. Second-hand navy sofa with a patched cushion. My desk by the window where morning light came through best. My father's photo above the reading chair Helen sent as a housewarming gift. Both of us squinting. Both of us laughing. I still worked remote. Still lived alone. Still wasn't married. And for the first time, none of that felt like something missing. It felt like something chosen. Denise texted in March. "Can we talk sometime?" I replied, "When you're ready to talk honestly, I'm here." She hadn't called. I wasn't waiting. Helen came every Saturday with flowers from the bookshop garden. We drank tea on the porch. One Saturday she looked at the dogwood and said it was blooming earlier than expected. "Some things just need room," I said. She smiled. "Here's what I know now. I didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped crossing the ones that led nowhere. When you stop being invisible to yourself, it doesn't really matter who else can't see you. The tree is blooming. The house is mine. The silence is kind. And that's enough. Now if you're new here, this is what we do. I take real stories from Reddit, Quora, and other forums with permission. I change names and details, add a bit of fiction to protect privacy, and break it down so we can all recognize these patterns. If this story reminded you of something in your own life, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Hit subscribe if you haven't. It's free. And there's another story linked right here that I think is going to stay with you. Thank you for listening. Truly.